Spray on skin.
Well,
Sorry,
sorry, Andy, you want to intro that? Go ahead. Sorry.
I should intro, but I don't know. We were just talking about all the wonders that Australia has done in terms of the discoveries and inventions. And the only time that I've seen anyone act in such a way is when you talk to someone from Scotland, and you ask them, well, what has Scotland ever done? And then they give you the whole list of the many, many inventions that Scots have done over the years, over the centuries.
The pacemaker, John. John, did your country invent the fucking pacemaker? I'm looking at my mic while I'm saying that.
Right, I understand. When I get
invented the cause for the pacemaker, though.
So if you don't know this, is that during the last show there was some shade thrown by Mr. Hudson onto Australia. What did you call Australia?
A friend told me that Australia was the UK's Texas.
Well, I was under the impression, and don't take this too seriously, that Australia was the UK's prison.
Oh, well.
No.
Well, that's a fact. Nobody's arguing that.
and that's why you have so many O'Malley's and stuff in their country, because that's where we sent most of the Irish, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Lots of Irish.
Right.
British Columbia.
Very nice.
Day.
Very nice.
It's not even here, and he's still hurting us with his puns.
That's right. That's right.
Is that Biscuit I hear?
I don't think that's my cat. That has to be somebody else. Is that yours?
No, that's both of my cats that are. He was meowing like crazy, one of them. So I figured, they need to be fed, and he's still meowing. So it probably wants attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other one's just looking out the window.
Good for that cat.
Yeah.
Just looking out the window, not bothering you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm in a much better state. I'm much more emotionally stable today than I was yesterday.
Sorry, yesterday I wasn't.
You weren't here? No.
No, I think I was just incredibly dehydrated from because I was working all weekend and we only have the patio open.
Oh, yeah.
So I was feeling like I think I woke up at like 7, stayed up till 9 a.m. and then I just slept till like after 12 yesterday. So I just yesterday was probably the first day I felt good and like all right, because I just didn't drink nearly enough water for the amount of amount of exertion I was doing. So,
well, one of the many anxieties that I have, and I'm glad that you asked about that, by the way, Glenn, is that I've read that as you get older, it's more difficult for your body to determine when you're dehydrated.
Yeah.
And so that's a new fear that's circulating through my head.
Well, but
John seems pretty hydrated. I see him working in the yard all the time.
Yeah, I do drink a lot. Sometimes water.
Very good. Very good.
The only way I know that is I start to get headaches. If I'm dehydrated, I get headaches. Also, I think it's just you also feel sluggish as well. But also mainly the only way that I can tell is is the color of your pee. To be brutally honest.
Oh yeah.
Well, like if it's yellow or orange like it was, I go, I need to drink some water. So
Sam, I'm watching. I just checked out the link that you dropped in the chat there. It's the.
You're welcome. You're fucking welcome, world. Especially you, John. You're welcome,
Did you guys
brother.
invent the kangaroo?
Dude, fuck that. The cochlear ear implant.
Oh,
medical application of
platypus.
Penicillin. We saved the world.
Fucking platypus. You invented the platypus.
And right outside of Ottawa, they tested the blue pill, which will thank you.
Well,
Viagra. They tested Viagra right outside of Ottawa, apparently. So you're welcome.
I'm going to send a thank you card to Australia for creating the winged keel.
What the hell is that?
A keel is the backbone of a ship, from what I understand.
Okay.
And it is, I'm just going to read it. Ben Lexkin, an Australian yachtsman and marine architect, invented the winged keel, a nearly horizontal foil or wing at the base of the sailing boat keel. That's interesting. So it's like a wing, basically. It's a wing on the keel.
But see what you did there, Andy? This is what the world does, see?
Tell me.
List of 20 things, and you hone in on the winged keel. Yet next on the list after permaculture is Wi-Fi technology, ultrasound scanner, plastic spectacle lenses, inflatable escape slide and raft.
Well, you got
What
cancer
else have we
vaccines
got
too.
here?
You got cancer vaccines.
My God,
Well, you thought
so
I was just
take
going to
back
stick.
what I said about Aussies being dumb. It's
You
just me.
You thought I was just going to fixate on the winged keel and the tank bred tuna system? You're probably fucking right.
Yeah.
Andy,
Forget the pacemaker and the cochlear implant and the penicillin.
I'm all about the
It's the
tank bred
winged
tuna
keel.
system.
Well, we have Canada has the arm on the International Space Station. That big thing.
Oh, really?
If you look at it, like, it actually has Canada written on the side of it. That's I think it's, I don't know what exactly it does. I think it fixes like stuff so.
Okay.
Well, we shoot rockets off in our backyard, and we invented the fucking nachos here in Texas. So
Did you invent the nachos?
nachos have come out of Texas. I just Googled things that are invented in Texas. Guess what number one was?
Simply Secular Dave says Australia invented 108 poisonous things that can kill you.
That's totally hard.
Yeah, that's the things we invented. That's not the things that were already here.
Yeah, right.
And you know, John, you could, or you too, Andy, could have just retorted with, "Well, my country was the first to the moon."
Well, that's because of Nazis. We all know that, right? I mean, Operation Paperclip and
You still did it. You still did it.
This is
kidnapped
like
the
a
people to
fucking
do it.
oversized Nokia 3310, essentially.
Yes. And we're probably going to have the most billionaires going into space too, when you really think about it.
It's amazing that between those three, they could probably solve 2/3 of the world's hunger problems, but it's all about a dick measuring contest on who went into space first.
Yeah. That's what it boils down to.
It's literally who can piss the highest.
And it's
whose piss can float the longest because they're in space.
I am not a big fan of CNN, but occasionally, I will watch it just to keep updated on what's going on in the world. And just a lot of fucking Jeff Bezos going into space. It's like, no, I don't want to know that. I mean, this is not important. This is not important news.
But really, who really cares
when he does it?
Yeah. Who really cares? Like, again, America's celebrating second place. The guy that went last week. Anyone after him is first loser. Who cares?
Yeah.
And who really cares that Branson went in the first place? But who really cares that Branson went in anyway? But I'm saying, hey, let's celebrate second place.
Right,
I thought this was America.
Branson went into space, but did he really ride on a giant space penis? No.
I'm just saying America's always about first place. So why are they celebrating second place?
Yeah, our penises are bigger in America.
I have to tell you, we were not the first ones into space. We know that the Russians were with Sputnik. First first human in space, Russians. We were behind for quite a while.
Yeah. I was actually had this interaction with a Trump fan on Facebook. You know where this is going. So basically, it's all these like pictures of like people, executives, and holding up banners saying Trump won. I go, Trump lost, deal with it. And then I got all this thing. Long story short. Like I just go. I basically use the same analogy. One, prove it, and two, and this is something they always say. Oh, this is the proof. Like there were more people voted than there were alive, and this, whatever. Like don't go. But my big thing is, well, one thing they never answer to me, or they kind of answer. I go, explain to me why, if they are this conniving and genius trying to steal an election, why they wouldn't fix the Senate and the House.
Yeah.
They go, oh, there were so many ballots when they didn't fill out the down ballots. So then they're just fucking morons that stole the election, which makes your guy a bigger moron. So, and then basically they shared a bunch of, they shared, oh, here's evidence, and they bring up an interview with a Trump spokesman or something that's Rumbler or whatever that Bannon is on, and I'm going, that's propaganda. And they always say, oh, you don't watch the right news networks. I'm going, probably you think OAN's the one, but anyway. And then they go, I go, I'm done with you guys, and they go, oh, you're running tail between your legs. And then they basically take down the article. So I'm the one that was running away, but they are so chicken shit of actually, getting truth bombed that they took down the whole damn article.
I heard someone say this. I think it was on Fox News like a while back, that if they're talking about elections, like if black Americans only make up 10% of the general population, how can they make up 13% of the vote?
That's because the rest of the
I understand why.
Yeah. No. It's the thing is, if you really wanted real democracy, you'd make voting mandatory, and you'd make the election day a holiday.
Well, yes, I mean, indeed. What's up, Wild Eden? See you there. Just make it a national holiday. Yeah, that would just make things easier, and everyone would be voting. But of course, a certain party here in the States, doesn't like democracy. I'm not going to say which one, Republicans, but yeah.
Well, no, it's but it just it's what you need about 50 Stacey Abrams in each state. That goes out and gets people registered, gets them to places where they can get. Because it's in Texas, that you cannot use your student ID to vote, but you can use your gun license to vote. So that just says everything, because they want the rednecks, but they don't want the educated to vote.
I will say this: I was listening to the 538 Political podcast yesterday, and it turns out that the vote recount, the ballot audit over Maricopa County in Arizona, has actually changed the minds of some Republicans in the fact that the vote there was good, that it was valid, that there wasn't Chinese ballots being flown in with bamboo shoots in them, basically. So that was somewhat positive. Is that
well one of the things this woman who apparently was trying to show me that the vote in Phoenix wasn't legal. They shared an article where the Democrats are going, okay, well, show us the results of this.
Yeah.
And they refuse to. Oh, they have to take him to court. And I'm going, this is proving my point, not yours.
Yeah.
And I didn't say that. I'm just going, it's like, but the mental gymnastics you actually have to go to prove, to say this stuff about that Trump won, the mental gymnastics you have to go through is just beyond freaking ridiculous.
I mean, it's the same mental gymnastics or similar mental gymnastics that you got to do to believe in a talking snake.
Yeah.
A dude walks on water.
Yeah.
A man with basically a happy meal of fish and bread are able to feed like 5,000 people.
Yeah.
Once you start believing that kind of stuff, then sure, the earth is flat. There are reptilians walking amongst us, and Donald Trump won the election. There is a clear line of insanity.
No, but you see, the funniest part is
Can I
that,
just interject there?
Sure.
That I'm more willing to accept all of that more than Trump won the election. I'll take the walking on water dude, all of it. But But Trump won the election is crossing the line, Andy.
That's the line. That's where you have to say no.
Yeah. Well, you see, the thing is, this is when it comes to I just don't know why you don't get rid of the electoral college and make it just a straight popular vote, because the fact is that there only one Republican has won the popular vote since 2000.
Right, and that was right after 9/11, I believe. That was Bush's
That was 2004 when he beat Kerry, right? I think.
I'm not. I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the last time a Republican won the popular vote.
Yeah.
I heard someone explain.
Well,
I can't remember exactly
I want to touch on the electoral college for a minute, not getting it too much into the weeds, but there are certain states, Maine and Nebraska, that when you see them on election night, that they actually distribute their electoral votes. So there's let's say there's 4 districts or 3 districts in Maine. They'll divide up its electoral votes via its district. So that is, so you don't. So even though getting rid of it, I'm a proponent of getting rid of it. There are different measures that you can go that would make it at least more fair.
Yeah.
And I'll say another thing. There's you have Brexit on one side, and then you have how to change things in America in the States on the other side. In Brexit, one vote, one time, and then completely fucks everything up. Right?
Yeah.
Completely everything changes.
Well,
here in the States, it's completely the other way. Whenever you need to change anything, it takes 1 million votes to get anything done.
Yeah. Now, what would it take to actually change from would it be like an amendment? Would you have to pass it through? Because I know an amendment, to overturn an amendment, you have to get, I think, pretty much almost 2/3, I think, of Congress, almost 2/3 of the Senate, and then every state has to agree to it. Would that be the same with the electoral college?
Yeah.
Or could they just change it on the Constitution?
Well, that would be changing it on the Constitution, basically.
Yeah.
Is going through. I mean, if you're going to do a legal way of getting around it, is that you would on a federal level, because this is the states and we have a federal system. It would have to be an amendment. Now, different states have signed on saying that they would change their laws so that they would distribute their electoral votes fairly if all the other states do it, or if many of the other states do it. So there are states who want to change, but on a federal level, it's close to impossible.
Yeah, because I read something on how the electoral college.
You got that underwater vibe going on there, Glenn, the International Man of Mystery.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. That the electoral college was actually racist in some way. Like, I saw a thing, and I'm not quite sure on how it's.
Well, what it is that the states with fewer in population, right? States that didn't have as many people in it, or people that could be counted as citizens, were slaveholding states, right?
Yeah.
So let's remember, at the eve of the Civil War, I think it was like 1/3 of the population were slaves.
Yeah.
So bring that back to like 1780 or so, 1789. Yeah. Then those states that had a lot of slaves didn't have a lot of people who could vote.
Yeah.
So they had, in comparison to like the North, which was more populous. Yeah. So they thought of ways of how to make it more equal, or to give the slaveholding states more power on a federal level, so that they wouldn't be steamrolled.
Yeah. Well, I think another way which you can completely change things is actually have equal representation, because there's no way. Bill Maher raised it. Why is it a state like Rhode Island has 2 senators, but a state like California has 2 senators, when California's population is like 100 times the size of Rhode Island? Like, it should be equal representation. So it should be by population. And then if you, for instance, drop your population, you lose a senator. You gain your population, you gain a senator.
Yeah, well,
but
during
the Congress is based on population.
Yeah, but
not,
the Senate isn't.
But not the
Senate isn't.
Yeah.
Not the Senate.
That was a compromise. I mean, once again, being in a federal system, like we don't have provinces here. The states are not administrative districts of the federal government.
Yeah.
And this is a lot better than what it was, mind you. Before the Civil War, once again, people referred to the United States in a plurality kind of way. So this is actually a huge step forward to having some kind of unified system, as scary as that sounds.
Yeah.
So the compromise, because there were certain people who only wanted to have the legislative branch based on states. So just be X number of, representatives from each state. And then there are other people, what was it? The Virginia plan. And I think the Rhode Island plan or something like that. And the Constitutional Convention basically said, we're going to compromise, do a bicameral house. And, somewhat they looked at the House of Lords and the House of Commons and said, well, we can make this more democratic. So that's, I think, part of what they were shooting.
Do you think they'll ever be?
I think it was Dr. Phil said, "How's that working for you?"
How's that working for you? Yeah,
Poorly, Dr. Phil.
Poorly.
Do you think there's ever going to be a push to actually expand the Senate then?
Well,
they expand the Congress.
And I haven't yelled about this for a while. Thank you very much, Glenn, for teeing me up on this. The best way to fucking expand the Senate is to have Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. as states. Now, I haven't heard one fucking thing about that.
Yeah.
Basically, the last couple of weeks.
You see that's the thing is, would Manchin and Sinema, if Manchin and Sinema would be up for voting for it, do it and bribe them all you have to, because you do that, you're gonna have a majority in the Senate for the next goddamn half century if you wanted to.
You would get basically 4 blue senators from 2 from DC and 2 from Puerto Rico. But that's the thing, the states here have always fought over who's going to be a state, right? They were talking about breaking up Texas for a while, but they thought, well, if we break up Texas, because Texas is so physically huge, geographically huge, then we would have like 5 slaveholding states, and that would swamp the Senate, and we can't do that because we got to keep the balance of power. So that's always been in the foremind. It's always been, part of the algorithm on who we let into the country in terms of states. Yeah.
Well, it's because you see, I think what scares them, like, if you let Puerto Rico in, then you maybe have some like Virgin Islands that belong to you that might go, oh yeah, whether we want to now be part of the we want senators, and all that, and then so who knows? But it's honestly, I think it's like Puerto Rico can vote, right? Puerto Ricans can vote in the federal election, right?
They do not. They cannot vote in the presidential election because they are not in a state.
Oh, okay.
They have a non-voting representative in Congress, I believe.
Well, okay. It's Utah was a Democratic state before it was a state. They were all about the Democrats, and in 1896 they were allowed into the Union under Republican rule, and they all became Republicans at that point.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
Well, it's weird how like. I understand that you don't want to just go with the new thing every time, but just how out of date when you think of some of politics and some rules and stuff, how out of date they are, and they just it's ridiculous.
I'm just going to respond to Nicholas in the chat there. I was going to write it with my left hand, but I'm way too slow with that. Yeah, the Senate was made to be slower and more conservative than the House of Representatives. It has structures in it, just people voting, people having 6-year terms in the Senate. That the Senate is made to be, I think the term is, it is the dish that the hot milk is poured into to cool, something along that line, right? Yeah. Because, the House of Representatives, you vote in every 2 years. The representatives have to be hustling all the time, basically, and being really close to the people, while the senators the theory was, before you needed like millions of dollars to get an election, you always had to try to get money, that the Senate would be a little bit more conservative.
Yeah, but you see, the only reason I don't like 2-year terms, the upside of having 2-year terms is that we could probably get rid of that dumbass from Colorado in less than a year.
Lauren Boebert.
Yes. The name the one that thinks that Fauci ouchies a really hard burn,
Ouchie. Dude, it's worse. They just need better. I would say that they need better writers, but their audience are idiots, and so maybe they don't need better writers. They just
no, they actually cheered cheered not being vaccinated. They cheered getting sick at the CPAC. So that just helped. No, what I was saying is the only thing I don't like about 2-year terms is that you are pretty much in campaign mode all the time.
Oh yeah. Well,
so how much do you actually get accomplished if you're campaigning all the time?
The Senate is also in constant campaign mode because of the money it requires to become a senator. You always have to be basically blowing. Yes, that's a sexual term right there. You have to always be blowing someone who has a lot of money so that you have a couple of million in your pocket. So when it does come time, you have the money. So the way that we fund elections, or the way that the public doesn't fund elections, it creates this system where senators as well as representatives are always campaigning.
Yeah.
Always funding money.
I remember not how you go, it's who you blow.
Yeah. I remember watching an episode of West Wing, and they were talking about campaigning, and they go, from the time he gets elected, the 2 midterms to that, to going into campaign mode, you really, if you're a president, have maybe less than a year of time where you can actually do anything legislatively. Like, if that's scary, you have a 4-year term, but you really have about like 8 months to actually get anything accomplished.
What I heard, I saw this on a documentary about the U.S. presidents, that most presidents, when asked, said that the best thing that they could do to revamp the presidency would be to create 1 6-year term as against the 2 4-year terms, because that way the president doesn't have to worry about re-election, have to be constantly campaigning during the presidency, and they have a bit more independence.
Yeah.
I never heard that, but that makes sense, Andy.
Yeah.
Well, that's
I just want to point out something for Nicholas in the chat. Residents of Puerto Rico and other U.S. territories do not have voting representation in the U.S. Congress and are not entitled to electoral votes for president. So I just wanted to clear that up in the chat.
Yeah. I was like I was saying. So I just I understand why. I kind of understand it's why you want the representatives to have only 2-year terms. I just think part of it, like, it's all of them are always campaigning, but at least well,
it's money. It's money that adulterates the system. That's what it does.
Yeah. And like I was saying, it's we were talking about CPAC.
I just want to say one other thing about campaigning. Once again, the Reagan tax cuts flooded the system with money, all this money, all the corporate money, right? Before this, corporations didn't have so much extra money to spend on politics.
Yeah.
Then they did.
Well, you see, the thing is, that it's the whole thing with corporate donors is, you eliminate that, it's going to be people actually have to go raise money honestly.
Yeah.
And you see, the thing is, everyone always talks, like, I love it because the right's obsession with what's his name, the rich guy that apparently is behind everything, the Jew guy, the Hungarian guy.
Hey, George Soros there, the person of Jewish descent, right?
So basically, they're obsessed and said, he collaborated with the Nazis, which is untrue. They have this, like, he's the boogeyman. I go, and my question I got to ask to any Republican, explain the difference between George Soros, who donates money to the left, and Sheldon Edelman. Adelson, yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
And the difference between them two and the Koch brothers, one of them is a Jew that just happens to give money to the left, so he's a demon, whereas the Koch brothers and Adelson are heroes because they donate to the right. Because I think for many ones, especially the evangelicals, the Jews are just for them, in their eyes, just a useful idiot, because
I think evangelicals by and large look at people who are Jewish as proto-Christians, right? Christians who they're just half-baked, basically. They came out of the oven a little bit too early.
Well, you see,
Maybe they'll come around. Maybe that was a bad analogy. That was the.
No, don't worry.
I just said. I just thought about what I said there.
Yeah. Well, you see, the thing is, this is with their obsession with Israel. It has nothing to do with being friendly to the Jews. It's because that is where God's going to come down and take them up and leave and send the Jews to hell, because that is the promised land for Christians, and the Christians believe, and the Christians is their life is more is the their religion is the best.
Right.
And
so I had a buddy who
YouTube algorithm has no context.
I'm sorry, what's that, Sammy?
I said, just remember the YouTube algorithm doesn't put things in context.
It does not. No, as I'm talking, I know what
Yeah. I also forget what I was going to say. So
Dragons in Genesis. Glad that you're here. Dragons in Genesis.
Hey, on a lighter note, I just saw where Texas invented the breast implants and the frozen margarita too. Thank you very much.
I thought Texas invented freedom, to tell you the truth, but I mean, so nachos and breast implants. That's what you got.
Margaritas, breast implants, and stadium nachos.
Wow.
It was
3 things I couldn't live without.
Yeah, I like my margarita on the rocks. I prefer it on the rocks anyway. So
you're a funny northern person, though.
It's so much better on the rocks.
It's so much better blended, and there you have no argument there, Glenn. No,
it's so much better on the rocks.
0.
Okay, no. Canada, Ontario, and Texas are going to war. It's on. It's on.
Hey, our GDP is bigger than your country, honey.
And I just want to tell you,
check it out.
When we take over your goddamn country, we bring a universal health care and a fucking metric system.
Bring your weed too.
I think we have like some kind of 3-way battle going on between Canada, Texas, and Australia.
World War III.
I think John Hudson just declared war on Australia as well as Canada. But that's a very Texas thing to do.
Yeah. What was that? I think it was one of the last movies that John Candy did, was Canadian Bacon or something.
Canadian Bacon, yeah.
That was fucking hilarious.
Isabel says in the chat, and I agree with you, Isabel, discussing term limits, term lengths, and little foreign me wondering how in the world are your Supreme Court places permanent. I don't understand that, Isabel G, either. How the Supreme Court, because the concept was that they wanted to make the Supreme Court as independent as humanly possible. I think that was the intent. And so lifelong appointees, but back then people didn't live as long either. Can you just imagine if we lived to be like a couple of 100 years, like Star Trek? You would have Supreme Court justices being there for like hundreds of years. That would be scary. That's a scary thought. Does that bother me? It does, to tell you the truth. That bothers me a lot.
Well, there's a couple of the Supreme Court justices. Actually, 2 of them. There was a nominee put in there by Cheeto Face. You'd think their brains were 100 years old.
Oh well,
a couple hundred.
They're originalists. They're originalists. In terms of Clockwork Rex is here. Hello, Clockwork.
Yeah.
Hey, on a lighter note too, Texas has 45% of all guns in the United States.
45%.
That is so shocking. I am so shocked about that one.
I just want to say that John Hudson called in some Texas reinforcements to wage his war against Canada and Australia. How are you doing, Clockwork Rex?
I'm doing pretty good. How are y'all?
Hey, sexy voice.
I was saying earlier, you weren't quite here when we were discussing margaritas, and it became a war. So when we win, we're going to bring the metric system, and we're going to bring the metric system to Texas.
And your weed.
No, you're not getting our weed.
Fuck that.
Canadian imperialism.
We're going to keep the weeds. We're going to keep the weeds for the true Canadians. The Texas Canadians you can get your crap weed from Mexico.
So tough. So difficult.
Dude, if you would have saw what I grew in Utah, it was sick.
Yeah.
Dragons in Genesis says, if you fly 239,000 miles, you reach the moon. If you fly 239,000 kilometers, you're only 2/3 of the way there and have to turn around and go home. That's why we don't use metric.
Oh, wow.
America. That's right.
America. Fuck yeah. Yeah. It's, oh, God. I was, yeah, it's joking aside. You know, like I said, I still remember when I was in San Diego, because obviously it's actually at La Jolla, I think it is, and because it just pretty much borders Tijuana. I asked for a large margarita, and it was the size of a fucking punch bowl. Like, it was, I didn't realize just how big. It took me 3 courses to finish it.
Yeah, yeah.
The way they're supposed to be.
Well, no, they were supposed to be bigger if they were real, you know.
I like my margaritas in a bucket. But it has to be 100% blue guave tequila, or I'm not about it.
What kind of tequila do you like? Which brand usually you going with?
Actually, Corazona.
Oh, okay. I've never heard that one.
It's it's very delicious. Tito's does a good one. Actually, the ones I've got are I can't even pronounce the names. They come out of Mexico.
Yeah. Well, I don't drink a lot of margaritas, but my favorite sipping whiskey, favorite one to drink after as an after dinner drink is either well, I love Don Julio and also love Cabo Wabo, Sammy Hagar's tequila.
I like Cornholio myself. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you hear? I don't know if you guys heard how Sammy Hagar started his tequila company, because he owns a place in Cabo, a cantina, and he wanted some house tequila. So he made a small couple of bottles, and then I think the customers started to really like it, and so he goes, "Oh, I'll start a company." And it turned into a couple hundred. He sold 80. Ended up selling 80% of it, if I'm not mistaken, to Diageo for 80 million. He still maintains 20%, and he made 80 million off going. Oh, I just want to make some tequila for my cantina in Cabo.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know, Dragons is talking about his experimenting with mead recipes. He uses a metric when experimenting with new mead recipes, but have to convert everything to American for full batches because my vessels are in gallons. Interesting.
Well, you know what? Like when it comes to measuring stuff like that, most beer companies, because I work at a brew pub, and most beer, most mead, everything is done in imperial, not in metric. So, you know, it's weird because we. Like I'm sure we've said, we measure height and stuff here. Well, no, everything officially is done, but everything is done on in kilometers on the road. But then there's other ways where we don't use the metric, which is weird. So,
well, as soon as I can grow some weed here in Texas, which might not be ever, but got some property up in Colorado too.
No good.
I've always wanted to raise bees with the in the cannabis fields and make mead out of the honey. Weed.
Dude, you just blew my mind.
Weed mead.
Wow.
It would be fabulous.
You're on mute, Sammy. Oh, you're intended to be on mute. Oh, okay, there you go.
I'm a fucking genius.
I meant to, but John, you are a fucking genius, man. Bee, honey, and
beer.
What was the other thing?
Once. Fucking kill it all.
Bee, honey,
marijuana.
And marijuana. Fuck, the main thing.
The main thing. How can you forget the main thing?
I'm coming, John.
You're a fucking mad scientist, John. That's what you are. What's up, Jocks?
I like growing things, and I like making things. You know, I'm always cooking. I'm inventing new drinks. I used to be world famous in my fucking pot farming. Good enough that I had 13 felonies.
Oh,
true story.
Okay, where was that in Colorado before it was legal?
No, that was in Utah.
Okay,
Where-
is Utah now a state that has marijuana laws illegal or?
They have a medical.
Oh, it's just medical. Okay.
Yeah, I've been an outlaw my whole life. It's fuck it, you know.
So, John, you were saying that I remember you mentioned that we were talking about civil forfeiture from the police.
Yeah.
That you had been victimized by the police.
Yeah.
What was it about one of the 13?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Firearms.
Firearms.
Oh. Okay.
Now,
And then they tried to bring up RICO statute and stuff because I had a wife and daughter. So it was this criminal organization that had $100,000 worth 100. They said I had $100,000 cash. First of all, the newspapers, which there was about 10 grand. But you come over here now and I don't grow and I have about that, you know. You just don't know what's going to happen. Anyhow, they came in, the news fucking blew it up. They said the neighbors couldn't smell it because of the green chilies and tomatoes, but then the police said the neighbors turned it in because they could smell it. Nobody could see it. I grew it out back. Around Labor Day, I built the Thunderdome around it, which was a opaque plastic that you could not see through. And I added the voodoo juice. Shit started oozing by the end of September. By the middle of October, you couldn't walk in the fucking Thunderdome without coming out just feeling sticky. Really. But 2 days before I got busted, I walked out there and the backside of the Thunderdome was cut open. And I'm like, what the fuck? Somebody's going to rip me off, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like, I got to get this out this weekend. Well, that was on Wednesday. They came in Thursday morning, kicking in the doors. Nobody was home. They found a business card, called my ex-wife. She was a realtor. I was a general contractor.
I was going to say the last person you want talking to the police is your ex-wife.
And anyhow, they called me up, and I told them, hey, I got these people's water off. As soon as I can get the water back on, I'll come turn myself in. So the news at noon, I'm on the run. They took all my fucking pot. When I talked to the detectives, I'm like, you don't have to fuck up my house. I'm like, you've obviously found that behind the garage.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's a couple plants hanging in my shop, and there's 2 5-gallon buckets in my closet. And that's it. I'm like, you might find a joint or something sitting on my nightstand, but that's it. You know, it was 2 5-gallon buckets. And anyhow, they like, why is it all bagged up different? I'm like, I don't mix my Captain Crunch with my Cheerios. It's just different species. I'm like, you can weigh this shit. If you find a half ounce, an ounce, or, you know, a measurable weight that might be, construed to be sold, I'm like, it'll be purely coincidental. And I started doing.
I love it that John's giving the police a documentary about it.
But the first thing they do, they're like, take us to 3 and you go free. I'm like, take you to 3. They're like, take us to 3 other dealers. I'm like, first of all, I'm not a fucking dealer. I don't know any dealers. I'm like, I grow it for me. I'm like, I grow my fucking green chilies. I grow my tomatoes. I grow all these fruits around here. And I'm not fucking hawking them on the corner either, you know?
Yeah.
It was bullshit. I grew it for me. I started doing it in 76 at the tender age of 13. And I was fucking good. And you kids can fucking think, motherfuckers like me, that you're smoking the goddamn good weed today, because without guys like me, you'd have to smoke the dirt weed we had to smoke.
How much did they bust you with? How much? What was the weight of the?
Glenn.
There was
Before
60.
you do,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
That was a great story. I have questions.
All right, let's get Glenn in. Let Glenn say what you're going to say, and then we'll have Clockwork after that.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear your answer. How much did they actually catch you with?
Well, there was never a weight on that. They never came in with a weight. I know there was 67 plants out there. They said 62. The feds didn't want no part of it after they heard the story, you know what I mean? And it was ugly. I hired the best attorney in Utah. The doctor I was working for, I called him and told him, Jim, they cut me with some weed. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I had a couple plants out in the backyard. And he told me, come by my office before you turn yourself in. You're turning yourself in with an attorney. No. And so I went by his office because I didn't know, if I had my money stashed at home still or not. And got a check for $5,000 and went and hired Ed Brass. And I know I could have beat it if I would have went all the way, but they offered me one felony when I was looking at 13, and jury in Utah, fuck, I just don't know,
Yeah, you don't know.
That's fair enough. That is fair enough.
So
how much? Tell
Can
him
I just point out what a cool fucking name that guy had?
Ed Brass? Oh, fuck, Brass was badass.
So Clockwork, what you were going to ask something earlier?
Okay. Can you tell by looking at a seed, because it's legal now since the 1st of July for me to grow 4 plants?
Feminized?
Yeah. Is it? Can you tell if it's male or female just by looking at the seed?
Not really.
Yeah,
not really. And even if you have a feminized seed, that's not a guarantee. It could hermaphrodite out on you.
Oh, that's fair enough. I've got little sprouts now. How big do they have to get before I can tell if they're male or female?
You're not going to tell till they start producing stamen. I mean, stamen or stamen. Not semen, stamen. The stamen will be on the male plant. It's a powdery substance that comes out. It kind of looks like it's starting to bud at first, but I would grow them in different places because I did all my crossbreeding legally. My little guy's coming in. I'm going to split, guys.
Thanks, John. That was a lot of fun.
Thanks for the answers, man.
Did you see my father reactions? And see you, John. I heard that. I heard a child's voice. I'm like,
yeah.
Okay, I have a question because I'm really uninitiated. There's a male and a female bud plant, and what's the difference, and what does one do that the other doesn't, or the one doesn't do?
The female's the one that produces the
Sorry, what?
The male doesn't.
And has sorry, Clockwork.
No, go ahead. No.
Yeah. Okay.
You probably know more about it than I do.
The female's the one that produces the bud, and also has the THC. Males can produce what you'd call, I guess, little heads, but there's no THC.
Oh, okay. All
barely.
Right. So is it more on the hemp side then, right? If the males are more hemp than anything, or
no, not really. I guess you could say it's more like it.
Okay.
It's all hemp.
Yeah. But the industrial hemp is like just a stalk with like a little bit of leaves and seeds at the top. Yeah. It's like a great big tall stalk, like 7-8 feet tall.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it could solve the rainforest problem in a heartbeat if we wanted to invest in it.
Oh yeah, you can make anything out of it, just about. Yeah.
And one of the biggest things that no one seems to ever mention, it's good that the forests and whatnot always get mentioned in regards to hemp, but rice, fucking cotton. Cotton is so detrimental to the environment.
I've heard it needs a lot of water.
Well, they flood, swaths of land that were forest or whatever. And obviously, no animals can live there anymore. So, replace it with hemp.
Well, it's like when they mine a mountain and they do the strip mining shit. Yeah, it's basically like that. Yeah, basically like
that. So I never really thought of cotton as a form of strip mining, but I guess that's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, in terms of the environmental impact. Sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much truth there is to it. It was in the 70s, and there was the when was the Satanic Panic?
No, that was during the 80s.
80s
and
late
90s.
70s, early 80s. But when pot was being demonized, there was a lot of financial backing from cotton industries, whether that be Monsanto or whatever it's called.
Monsanto, I think.
Monsanto,
yeah.
Oh yeah, and to throw back to the conversation we were having yesterday, Dungeons and Dragons fuels a lot of the Satanic Panic. People were playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's just a fucking game.
You when you get some Satanists together of our age, they will always be talking about Dungeons and Dragons, playing D&D in the midst of the panic. Yeah.
Because you see it. You see a lot of it. A lot of it was just overhyped, as because it's. I mean, even the satanic temple. It's more about being in, if I remember correctly, more except for the Anthony LaVey, which was apparently the was not even really satanic temple. It was just like. And it was very much just like a publicity stunt for, whereas like a lot of true Satanists cannot stand him because the
one thing that I have discerned from interacting just a little bit with Satanists is that there are there are controversies and there is some finger pointing about you doing it wrong, right? Just like with any other group. With any other subgroup, there's that you're not Sataning right, because the Church of Satan.
Question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, you finish your thought.
Because the Church of Satan is less about doing quote unquote good in the world, while the Satanic Temple, of course, it's much more about social advocacy, social justice, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, it's sorry. Go ahead, Sammy. You want to say something?
I had a question. We've kind of got a little bit past it now. I was going to say these Satanists, Andy, do they say whether they play D&D before or after they eat the babies?
Very good. Very good.
No, you do it while you're playing D&D.
Yeah. Well,
of course.
Yeah, but you see, if I'm not mistaken, because the reason I was saying about LaVey was, isn't Satanism close to like Wiccan and more being in touch with the earth and stuff, like individualism, which means that if it's about individualism and being in touch with the earth and Wiccanism, then a temple is the antithesis, is the exact opposite of what Satanism truly is, in theory, right? Because it's not about collectivism, it's about individualism over as a collectivism, right?
You know what, Glenn? I'm going to say right now, I would recommend that you listen to any one of the conversations that we've had with Lucian Greaves, co-founder of the Satanic Temple here on this channel.
Oh, okay.
Or with Stu DeHaan, who is also one of the lawyers for the Satanic Temple.
Yeah.
And if you ever want to pop on the channel when Jack Materko's on, because Jack Materko is actually works for the temple. He does some of their IT work. So
yeah.
Well, I mean, there's different branches of Satanism. Some of them believe in magic, some of them don't. So I mean,
the temple itself. Right. So the temple itself, the Satanic Temple, it's a rationalist. It doesn't believe. I mean, doesn't believe in magic, but they're a theistic Satanist, for example, a minority who aren't part of the temple, who definitely believe, in a real Satan. There's Steve Hill, who was on the channel, who's running for. He's a Satanist, a comedian, brilliant guy, and he was on the channel a little while ago and talking that he's part of the synagogue, Satan's synagogue, or something like that. So that was even another flavor of Satanism.
I have a very serious question. If you could answer it in your last 5 minutes, Andy.
I just want to say that Dragons in Genesis is pretty much right. Satanic Temple is spicy atheism. All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. But what my question is if it's essentially with these secular Satanists, if it's essentially the same ideals and that as everyday atheists say, what is it other than essentially just a label?
Well, there, and I think this is the.
I'm not judging that.
No. And I don't think you are either. But that's a legitimate question, and I think I actually have an answer because I've been thinking about that too. Why is the Satanic Temple the only real large community-based atheist organization out there? And that's because they were a societal subgroup before they realized they were Satanists. So they were outsiders. They were in direct opposition to evangelical Christianity or to religion, to like I said, to theocracy. And so there was already a subgroup there, either musically, because there's always been like Satan stuff in the zeitgeist. And so when the temple came, it was like, oh, this is people. It just resonated with them because this subgroup already existed.
Second question.
Well, wait a minute. Let me follow up.
How would one go about joining?
Oh, you just joined. You just joined.
You can go to like the Satanic Temple online. Yeah, and check it out.
Yeah, and to follow up a little bit on that, they became a religion because they get tax breaks for it.
They when the Satanic Temple first started out, they were not a nonprofit, but now they within the last 5 or 6 years, that's when they became an official religion in regards to the IRS here in the States.
So let me ask you.
And or whoever they are, and the JWs can be. Why the fuck not?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And plus, they called themselves the Satanic Temple to stick it to all these fucking Christians.
Yeah.
And I asked Stu, who was a lawyer who fought one of the cases for the temple, and I asked him, it's like, do you have to be basically a social justice warrior? Do you have to be an advocate for social justice if you're going to belong to the temple? And he goes, not at all. He said, what he tells people is that you come for the Satan and you stay for the advocacy.
And the food. It's pretty good.
Oh yeah. And the tattoos.
Oh, sure.
Now let me ask you.
I want to just answer Ox here in the chat because this is and once again, I've just been working with Jack. I've talked to Lucian a couple of times. I talked to a bunch of Satanists the other time. So why call it satanic? What they use, the image of Satan, it does resonate. And this is something with our monkey brains, everyone, right? You ask yourselves, why are, it seems like we need to glom onto a figure of some kind to get people to surround, to gravitate around. So it is an image. It is a symbol that they use, a rallying symbol, because Satan in the Bible is the person who questions God. He is the one who is rebellious. He is the one who doesn't take what he is told to do. So it's a powerful symbol for them.
Yeah. Okay. My question is this: if you say there's obviously, just like any Christianity, there's different sects of the satanic religion. Now, if the actual if one of the satanic religions is about actually believing in this mythical satanic Satan figure, then they can't be atheist, right? Because
those are theistic Satanists.
Yeah.
So you have the atheistic Satanists like the Church of Satan and the Satanic Temple. And then you have, like I said, I don't actually know of an organization that is theistically satanic. I'm sure there are. I'm sure it's a very small one. But yeah. All right, wow, I didn't know that we were going to talk about Satan. What a crazy show this has been. Talking about Australia versus Texas and Canada versus Texas.
Yeah.
Wow. And crazy stories about marijuana. And then we ended up on Satanism.
And then Satan.
But that's why you people come here. That's why you come here, to see the conversation. This crazy, whatever we do here.
Yeah.
To see this sideshow.
Yeah. Yeah. Come for the atheism. Leave with Satanism.
That's right, man. All right.
Stay for Satan.
Oh, I got some good news. I got the job interview that I went for on Monday. I just got a call and a message. I just checked it, and they're going to offer me the position. So this is good. I will be less poor than I am now, everyone. So,
cool. Great job.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Congrats.
All right. Thanks, chat. Thanks, panel. We'll see you tomorrow.
Laters.